Hi there. I've got a great conversation with Michelangelo Signorile joining me today. He, of course, is the longtime afternoon host, SiriusXM Progress Channel, and if you want to jump to it, it starts at about 20 minutes into today's show. But I hope you'll stay. I've got the headlines and clips coming up. Want to say happy September. I hope you had a good Labor Day weekend. Thank you to everybody who joined us at last night's happy hour hangout, the last one until we meet in person at Farm Jam this Friday and Saturday. So looking forward to seeing all of those of you who can join. And if you're a last minute decider and you have any questions that it's hinging on, just email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com, and say last minute or not sure, anxious, whatever questions you have, just email me and I promise I will get back to you on that one. A little bit of a bittersweet morning for me because our daughter Julia, our youngest, is now the oldest in the high school. She is a senior, class of 2026, and we redshirted her in kindergarten, so she turns 18 in a couple of weeks as well, but she is starting her senior year, and it's tough. It's tough. I'm not going to lie. Those of you that have gone through it know it, and she will be, as of now, doing a gap year in Italy next year, and then probably off to college, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? We're just so proud of her, and I just want to thank everybody who has supported me for years and years now. I could not do it without you, so thank you for all your kind wishes. And if your child is also off to school in any year, I am thinking of you as well. It can be a tough time for parents, and to all of our educators and retired educators and anybody who works in a building with children, thank you. We see you. We are grateful to everybody in public education especially, and I am so grateful to all of the amazing teachers, educators, and support staff out there. And those of you listening and those of you who aren't, go send them a note today. It's a good thing to post on their Facebook page or reach out to the teachers that are starting the year and say hi, because it's real, sometimes thankless job, and they get beaten up a lot. And I just want to make sure you know we see you. Have a great year, everyone. All right, let's get to those headlines and clips right now. Starting with, it's not the most important story, but I don't know, I had it at the top of my list. Yesterday, a mysterious bag was thrown from a White House window, sparking wild theories amid the health rumors about our Mad King. But that was weird, strange, unsettling incident at the White House. Really looking forward to finding out what that was, but it certainly did stir some intense online speculation. And, of course, renewed scrutiny over security and transparency. And as Kevin Richberg made the point last night at our hangout, if this was any other administration, everybody would be going wild. But, of course, it's no big deal. Just throwing stuff out the White House window in front of everybody. A bigger story, a more important story, and a really enraging story. The Trump family has amassed a $5 billion fortune, at least temporarily. Maybe they'll lose it all, but they launched a new crypto coin yesterday. I read the article about it, and I still don't understand how it works, what it is, how you make money, but many of you probably do. Anyway, they are cashing in. Don't let anybody ever say or believe that they are somehow in any way sacrificing or serving the country. They are richer than they could have ever imagined. And by the way, overnight, didn't have to build a building over several years, and all the work that goes into that, scamming people and not paying them for building that building. Nope, $5 billion. It was up to $6 billion at one point, apparently. So yeah, that's a important story. It probably won't get reported enough, I think it's fair to say. I saw this and thought it was worth mentioning. 9 former leaders of the CDC, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, have accused Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. on Monday of endangering every American's health by the way he's managed the public health agency. The former CDC directors and acting directors described Kennedy's changes to the CDC, including last week's firing of Susan Monarez as head of the agency, as being, quote, unlike anything we have ever seen at the agency and unlike anything our country has ever experienced. But isn't that the point? Go in there and break things, RFK. Get rid of all these pharma-funded experts or whatever he says that people somehow buy. Former officials who wrote this letter served both Democrats and Republican administrations. They pointed to RFK's handling of the largest U.S. measles outbreak in decades, his skepticism of vaccine safety, funding cuts to state and local health departments, and terminations of thousands of government healthcare workers and replacement of experts on health advisory committees with, quote, unqualified individuals who share his dangerous and unscientific views as threats to Americans. So that is a huge story. Another huge story we should all be paying attention to and concerned about. I'll be talking with David Rothkopf about this today at 5 East. If you want to watch, I should be live on YouTube and other platforms. Here it is. Russia's Putin hails unprecedented ties with China at talks in Beijing. That's right. All the baddies are meeting, and we're one of the baddies now. But also North Korea's Kim Jong-un is joining the gang with the Chinese and the Russians. But Vladimir Putin said his ties with the Chinese President Xi Jinping are at an unprecedented level as the two met in Beijing on the eve of a massive military parade. Terrible people. Just terrible. Also, the Chinese president is preparing to welcome North Korea's Kim Jong-un in what appears to be a show of solidarity with both aggressors, of course, in the Ukraine war. So that's where China is. And, of course, India was just there with them as well. Very important to talk about, to learn about, to pay attention to. And all of this as a result, in a huge way, of our Mad King ushering it all in by alienating, especially India. And so there you have it. Congress is returning. Very messy autumn it will be. Democrats, are they ready for the fight? A lot to talk about with Congress returning. Of course, the Epstein files, we're supposed to learn a lot more about that. I think that's tomorrow. An explosive September 3rd press conference that a bipartisan, Thomas Massey, the one Republican, and a bunch of, I think, Democrats are going to be unveiling that. We'll see if we learn anything new. Hopefully we will. Will a stock trading ban be successful is another question. The Senate is eyeing a nuclear move and CDC fallout because Republicans are gearing up to change the rules of the Senate and using the so-called nuclear option order to push Trump's nominees for sub-cabinet positions through faster. We'll see if that happens. Oh, and of course, government funding. Democrats already preparing for a brawl with Trump and Republicans over the September's funding deadline, and that'll be September 30th. So watch that heat up. A lot to pay attention to with this incoming, they're back after they ran away to their August recess early to get away from the Epstein files. But those are also going to be back tomorrow. So looking forward to seeing what happens with that. And those are your headlines from yesterday, and it was Labor Day, so not as busy of a day in news and news coverage, but that's what I gathered for you. So now it's time to get to the clips, the clip show. I've got for you the sound bites. Nobody does it better, everybody. And I've got a handful of them for you today. It's not too much. And let's start with over at MSNBC. Anti-gun violence activist and victim survivor of the Parkland shooting, who's become a big media mogul himself. Cameron Klatsky was on the panel at MSNBC. I thought he was very poignant and articulate, talking about where we are at and how Americans feel. I don't agree with the binary that he makes here, that there's only two types of policymakers, because he's disregarding all of the Democrats that have voted for and passed legislation, and I think that's a bad thing. But still, his point is pretty well taken here.
Are always performative. And that was something my classmates and I didn't understand when we were 17 years old and thought that we were really going to be able to put an end to this gun violence. But in this country, the politicians are either paid off by the NRA and similar organizations, it's not just the NRA, or they think that guns are a losing issue and we're not going to be able to see any substantive difference here. But it is so important for us to remember that a mass shooting like Parkland or even Uvalde, which got exponentially less coverage, those things used to take the breath away from Americans. And now, this mass shooting we're talking about right now is not going to be in any discussion within the next 2 weeks tops. There was a political assassination in Minnesota, in the state of Minnesota, very recently. Donald Trump did not attend the funeral of these people who were politically assassinated by somebody impersonating a police officer in the United States. And we don't talk about it anymore. This administration and the country as it is today is so defined by tragedy, cruelty, and violence that something like children being shot dead while they are praying is not going to be a topic next week.
All of that is true except for the injustice that this activist, I think, makes by disregarding the brave Democrats at the state and federal level who have absolutely put their reputation and career and safety on the line by voting for all kinds of regulations and laws that would work to bring down gun violence in America. So I just don't like that because it just disregards activism and brave work, hard work that a lot of different organizations and individuals are dedicated to. But the rest of the point, I concede in terms of the media landscape and the general culture of America and what it's done to our social fabric, and it desensitized us as another school year begins. All right, well, one of the people who has led on this, by the way, I mean, that Cameron Klotsky is just ignoring this guy, Chris Murphy of Connecticut, who was a senator during Sandy Hook, who passed and voted for these laws and has been rhetorically and organizing wise an amazingly effective anti-gun violence advocate. So that's what I mean. But here is Chris Murphy on a whole nother issue.
Yeah, I mean, the long story of the human race is a story about a reduction in violence. Yeah. Right? We are a violent species. We've used violence over the millennia in order to advance ourselves and protect ourselves. But we made a decision long ago that that's not how we wanted to live. And so we decided to put in place a set of rules and norms that made violence much less likely. And that's been our story in the United States and across the world. But what is happening now with Donald Trump in charge is a fetishization of violence, a celebration of violence. It starts when he loses the election and decides to use violence to try to install himself in power permanently. It's his response to an unsecure border. It's the people with guns patrolling the capital city. And so you now have a country that sees violence, lethality, as the way to deal with almost every problem. And that ultimately plays out in the way that broken brains start to contemplate the way to exercise their demons as well. So we just need to get back to what, Steven Pinker called our better angels. And that's the hard work of trying to find ways other than violence to deal with conflict. Donald Trump is engaged in a daily celebration of violence, and that has impacts on our politics and on our culture.
All right. There you go. The senator from Connecticut. I thought that was good. Tom Morello, who is one of the greatest guitarists, I think, of all time. You guys can tell me, you music people. Of course, lead frontman for Rage Against the Machine, and probably almost as well known in other circles as an activist, a very progressive activist. He was, I don't know where this comes from, but he was talking about how progressive politics, the issue of the Palestinian cause, the role it plays. I thought it was good. I love Tom Morello. I've met him, interviewed him a couple times, and so I thought I'd toss this clip in.
Cap are not terrorists. What is terroristic is, 20,000 dead Palestinian children. Yeah. That's the story.
Bombing hospitals.
Exactly. That's the story. Not, some Irish rappers who don't like that's happening should not be that. It's unique because there is a phenomenon called progressive accept Palestine. Right. And people who, I've been aligned with on every issue, up and down, every corner of the globe, every corner of the United States until it comes to this. Mm-hmm. And, I try to be open-hearted about it and recognize that there is this kind of historical trauma in the Jewish community where they feel, fear and like we're not an unfounded.
Anti-Semitism is real.
Anti-Semitism is totally real, and so are war crimes against children. Yeah. And I can parse that out, and support the Jewish community when anti-Semitism comes after them and support Palestinians when they're being bombed into oblivion by war criminals. Right. To me, that seems like, but as a musician, there's a higher price to pay for standing up on this issue than anything else. Yeah. Anything else. How many countries have we bombed in the last 10 years? Like it is a failed state of aggressive, daily war crime committing or funding country that cannot feed its own people and is now abducting that as mass agents of the state, abducting them and pulling kids out of schools.
All right, there you go. And I thought that was pretty good from Morello. Good points. Also, we've got this new guy running for Senate in Maine who has gotten a whole bunch of attention real quick, it would seem. Right now, the seat is held by Susan Collins. and we all know and have probably an opinion on her. Well, guess what? There's a new guy in town, and everybody has fallen in love with him. He's positioned himself as a fighter for the working class. He himself is an oysterman in Maine, and he's captured the attention of a lot of Mainers, including everybody in Maine. All the residents of Maine were at this rally last night in Maine. I kid, but still, it was a lot of people for Maine filling up an arena. Bernie Sanders was there as well. But ladies and gentlemen, meet, if you haven't already, Graham Plattner, who is running to unseat Susan Collins.
Now, Susan Collins' charade is wearing thin. This is the easiest applause lines in these speeches. No one cares that you pretend to be remorseful as you sell out to lobbyists. No one cares while you sell out to corporations, and no one cares while you sell out to a president who are all engineering the greatest redistribution of wealth from the working class to the ruling class in American history. Symbolic opposition does not reopen hospitals. Weak condemnations do not bring back Roe v. Wade. Selling out the same working class voters who've delivered mandate for change after mandate for change is not forgivable. A performative politics that enables the destruction of our way of life is disqualifying for the role of United States Senator.
Well, there you go, Graham Plattner. And he is a pretty interesting guy, and his points are, and his platform is interesting. He also did 4 infantry tours in the Marine Corps and the Army. So that should be a no-brainer, right, for Maine? Come on. Well, Sarah Gideon is the woman who opposed Susan Collins last time. She raised $40 million more than Collins, and she had the lead in the polls, but she still lost by 9 points in a state that Joe Biden won handily. So hard to understand why Susan Collins has such a death grip on that state, but maybe this is the election cycle. She goes down. All right, here is CNN's Dr. Jonathan Reiner. He is a cardiologist, and he is telling everybody that they should not be taking guidance from the CDC and RFK, but should talk to their own doctors.
So if we're headed now in a direction where we can't trust these agencies as they're being dismantled, and we have these reports that by next month there is going to be some kind of report that attempts to tie vaccines to autism, for example, and stuff that isn't actually based in science. Who should Americans then rely on for health guidance?
Well, that's easy. Americans need to rely on their physicians, and Americans need to rely on what the groups, the professional groups in the United States, like the American Association of Pediatrics and American College of Gynecology, the kind of guidance that we hear from these professional groups. Ultimately, the nation's doctors and healthcare providers are really the boots on the ground. And my colleagues around this country have devoted their lives to protecting the health of their patients and their communities. And these are the people that Americans should go to for information. If you want to know, if you're pregnant and you want to know whether you should be vaccinated, talk to your obstetrician. If you're wondering this flu season and COVID season whether you should vaccinate your kids, talk to your pediatrician. These people have spent their lives taking care of America, and these are the people that most Americans trust. And these are the people that Americans should continue to trust. Do not trust, in my opinion, the leadership of HHS.
Wow. Do not trust the leadership. I mean, you're hearing that from physicians and experts across the country. I mentioned that letter from the former heads of the CDC, both Republicans and Democrats. So we're in it, folks. We are in a very confusing, very scary time. Stick together in your communities locally here with the stand-up community, and we can help build consensus and help each other make decisions that are best for ourselves, our families, our security, our safety, and our health by sharing these ideas and supporting each other in all of the ways that we can. I'm doubling down on community when we're living in this pseudo-authoritarian fascist state, whatever you want to call it, however you want to frame it. All right, right now I'm going to get to my guest, and we'll get back to the comedy clips because all the late night guys are coming back. It's easy to grab those clips and send me the comedy clips you're seeing. If something makes you laugh and it would be good for audio, send it over to me. It's always helpful. standupwithpete@gmail.com for all of your headlines and clip ideas and story ideas and guest ideas. Please help me make the show better. It's our show. You can help produce it anytime. I love to crowdsource. Yeah, crowdsource. Sorry. Okay. Michelangelo Signorile is a very respected journalist and activist and has been for pretty much his entire career, first in New York and then nationally. And he's been a mentor and a friend of mine for years because we worked together at SiriusXM, and we were kind of thick as thieves, sharing ideas and always talking to each other about, internal politics and moves at the company, and we always stuck by each other, and I really have a lot of respect for him. He's always been good to me. You should go subscribe to his Substack. You should listen to him on SiriusXM and follow him on all the social medias where he's very active. I love talking to Mike. We haven't talked in a while. His show, by the way, is 3 to 6 East on SiriusXM channel 127, I believe. I hope I have that right. Anyway, Mike is great. We caught up, talked about a lot, and I hope that you appreciate this conversation, and I hope that you'll go let him. Let's do it right now. You can watch this on youtube.com/standupwithpete as well. Yeah, look who it is. Surprise, surprise. One of the legends in broadcasting in my life, a mentor of mine, Michelangelo Signorile. It's great to see you. Thank you for saying yes to talking to me today.
Hi, Pete. Great to see you.
How are you?
I'm doing okay, considering the hellscape that we're living in, but you always have to give it that qualification when people say, "How are you?" Right? It's like, yeah, well, doing okay considering where everything is a cloud over us.
Yes. That's why I like to start it there, just to see how people answer that question. Given what would you describe the atmosphere of America right now in terms of the authority? I mean, people are using all kinds of terminology from dictatorship to autocracy to competitive authoritarianism. Is that right? To oligarchy. Like, what words do you use, generally speaking, on the radio show, or what do you think is most accurate or effective to describe how far it's gotten or gone?
I would say all of the above. It depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about Trump's demeanor and instinct, then you're definitely talking about dictator, authoritarian, somebody who wants to be that. If you're talking about what the country has become, well, I don't think it's quite gotten there yet, but he's doing things to instill that. And he's obviously got the military in the streets. He is taking shares of companies. That's a state capitalism thing, copying China and Russia. So he is trying to do that, but we have a lot of checks and balances in this country. They're being tested. If you could really transform this country into a competitive autocracy or whatever it is, people are calling it, we will see. But so far, he's trying, but we're fighting back.
There's some truth to what he said the other day, which is a weird phrase, about some people might want a dictatorship. I don't think they would call it that, but I feel like I evolved on this idea of talking about democracy because I realized that most Americans don't know what democracy is. So all this talk about saving it or else, I'm not sure how much it resonated because we don't realize how good we have it. And so I do think there are a lot of people that if you just ask them, do you just want someone that is going to make decisions and run government like a business, like they always said? Or do you want people arguing, ideas all the time and it's slower moving? I think there would be a lot of people like, yeah, just give me daddy. Just give me a king.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think there's...
Well, I mean, there's a whole strain. I think there are a few things going on. There's a whole strain of MAGA going way back that has talked about wanting a strong man, wanting we had that whole movement of we need a new Caesar, right? They want the idea of a dictator. They want somebody taking over. They believe democracy hasn't worked. They believe that democracy has allowed for these quote unquote minority groups to get power over the majority, right? And make them into the persecuted ones. So there have been those people who definitely are in that movement. And they've kind of given Trump a lot of his, mojo. But I do think there are a lot of people for whom all of this talk is very abstract.
Right.
They're not people who really get deeply into it. They may not understand it. They may not be very educated about this stuff or whatever. They're just responding to the simple promise, right? I'm going to bring prices down. And I say this because I think Zoran Mamdani has sort of been able to do something similar, and it's frustrating Fox News so badly. But of course, what he represents in democratic socialism is not a bad thing like fascism, but it's a term people don't understand. And so when, ask people about it, they'll say, well, I don't know. I don't think we want that. Just like if you ask them about fascism, they would say, I don't think we want that. But when they try to demonize Mamdani as a democratic socialist, it's not working because he has simply connected with, I'm going to bring the price of housing down. I'm going to bring this down. And he's connecting with them on a personal level, really bonding with them. So I think part of that is what's going on with Trump, in addition to this movement that really wants a strong man.
Say more about Mamdani and your thoughts on him. You live and work in New York City. Do you know him? Have you ever interviewed him?
I've had him on my show. I don't know him personally, but I've interviewed him on my show. He's, I think, an enormous talent as a politician, number one. He just really connects with people, but knows how to communicate. And in this very new landscape that we have, he's native to it, and he is able to connect with people through all of these avenues, TikTok and other social media. And I think he's somebody who's very charismatic, but he also understands policy very deeply. And I think the most brilliant thing he's been able to do is translate policy, complicated policy, into these videos and social media platforms. Because most of the people we've always thought, oh, he's really good on social media. It's because they do great slapdowns and memes and this and that. I think of like the old John Fetterman, right? Mamdani is actually giving heavy-duty policy on these platforms, and he's doing it in a fun way. So I think he has been able to captivate people, and he's also been able to neutralize the opposition on a lot of the hot-button issues. He makes no concessions about his beliefs. He thinks it's a genocide in Gaza. He is committing $30 million to trans-affirming care for transgender youth. Now, New York's very liberal, but there's MAGA all over New York, and there's trans issues are still complicated. And yet that stuff doesn't get, he talked to me about all that, but that's not what he talks about generally. He talks about bringing housing down. And when I look at the map as a New Yorker, I'm really amazed at who voted for him. And looking even on Staten Island, where you had whole places where Cuomo should have blown it out, and where Trump blew it out, and Mamdani got a lot of support. So that's all very interesting.
What do you make of, it is interesting the way you're saying it too, what do you make of the Democratic Party's reaction, whether they are embracing him or having a no comment or not? What do you make of all that? Do you think that's purely about the Israeli lobby and the Arab-Israeli conflict, that issue? Or do you think that it's about like the word socialism? And then the other, I think, fair question is, does his brand might work in New York, but will that work for a Democrat running in Kansas?
It is working for those other Democrats, and I'll get to that in a second. I think the Democratic leadership is being really stupid. I think they're being very, very overly cautious in a moment when you need to go for broke. You have nothing to lose. We have this, authoritarian attempt here by Trump. And I think some of what you're saying about Mamdani regarding the Israeli lobby and money that comes from AIPAC, that's certainly part of it. But it's also the fear of somebody called a socialist and the fear of where it will go and the fear of his policies. And he's popular now, but if he becomes mayor, will he be a failure and will they be stuck with it and whatever? I'm sure all of that's going through them, and they listen to these consultants, and the consultants are all these centrist Democrats who try to pull everything the other way. So I just think they're being stupid because they should be hitching onto his wagon. They should be doing what he's doing. And the smart ones are beyond the leadership. If you look at the election we just saw in Iowa, for example, Caitlin Dry, who flipped a red seat in the legislature and killed the supermajority in the Republican Party there, in a district Donald Trump won by 11, she is somebody who, the core of what she has sort of represented as a politician has been abortion rights and other issues. But what did she talk about during the campaign? Housing, affordability, making the rent cheaper, groceries. So they're all doing, the ones who are successful are doing Mamdani. They're just doing it in their way in Iowa instead of in New York. We're seeing it in other races too.
I actually talked with our friend Zach Walz, who's running for U.S. Senate. Have you talked to him lately?
I haven't talked to him in a while, but yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, he's running now for Joni Ernst's seat against. I mean, it's a primary, but
I'll probably have him on. Yeah,
yeah, but really interesting points about that with Mamdani. Going back to what we're seeing right now from our authoritarian leader, our Mad King Schittler. Do you think, like Gavin Newsom and a lot of my listeners think, and maybe I'm misrepresenting Newsom, that basically there are two kinds of Americans over here on Earth One. Those of us who think there's going to be a midterm or another election, and those of us who think he's trying to prevent there from being an election. Do you think that there's going to be a midterm election happening? I mean, he's basically saying you're dreaming if you think he's not going to try to stop the election. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's going to be a midterm election. And I think that the proof of that is that they're trying to rig it. They wouldn't be wasting all their time on this gerrymandering campaign if they weren't really afraid, and Trump's really afraid of Republicans losing, because then he's facing investigations. He's facing impeachment. He's going to have a really miserable several years. So they're worried about it. They are doing the gerrymandering. He's doing the military, perhaps to intimidate people with voting. Who knows?
Right.
He's definitely setting up the lawsuits and claims of cheating. He keeps talking about mail-in ballots. I don't see them moving to stop the actual election. I don't know how they do that because we have local elections. We don't have a federal election. But I do see them doing what they can to mitigate it in terms of voter suppression, the gerrymandering, and probably filing lawsuits. So there will be an election, and they're going to do everything they can to rig it. Will they be able to do enough? I have to say that after looking at that race in Iowa and seeing a Democrat flip a red seat in a Trump won district, he won by 11 points and she won by 10. After seeing the previous special election in Iowa, after seeing all these other special elections, even if they gerrymander all these seats, Democrats are winning in seats that Republicans have won comfortably. So I still have faith that we're going to have an enormous turnout and the Republicans are in trouble.
What do you make of the energy you're seeing with protests and at town halls in red districts and so on? I mean, it's loud. I've been part of it here in 17 against Mike Lawler. I'm inspired by it, but it's hard to know how big it is, because on the flip side of it, and I'm a pretty optimistic person, on the flip side of it, I was just in Boston on a college tour with my daughter, going to New York City all the time, go to a concert, go to a fair, most people seem pretty apathetic and pretty happy and pretty comfortable everywhere you go and look. But in our silos, if you will, who care about politics, we work in political media, I'm certainly paying attention to wherever there's resistance, and I want to give it a lot of credit. But then on the flip side, what I just said about my other anecdotal experience, what do you make of the energy of the, quote, resistance or the anti-Trump movement or the anti-fascist movement across the country?
I think it's big. I think it's really smarter, more strategic, and more organized than the last time. Sending, hundreds of thousands of people to Washington, spending all that money, especially now dealing with Trump and the military, that wouldn't be the way to go. Having individual protests in cities across the country, having people go to town halls, I think it's a much more useful way for people to get involved. And what you say about what you hear anecdotally, it was like that in the first term too. I mean, there's always going to be, and frankly, it's like that in every administration. There's always going to be the people who are deeply involved, and most of the country is apathetic. Let's be honest. But the people who are deeply involved on our side are really involved, and they're organized, and they're getting people excited. And what I think the Republicans have a problem with is, I don't think their base is excited. Yeah, they have their sort of hardcore crazies, but I don't think their base is excited. I think Trump put together a different coalition this time to get his 1.4% win. And that coalition included these young people, including young men who are not going to be as loyal. They're already pulling away. They're already saying, hey, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this. They are not people who really get out to vote anyway. And so he's going to have a problem with them. He's going to have a problem with any of the Latinos who we see it in all the numbers shifted to him. They're going to have an enthusiasm problem, and I don't think we're going to have that.
What do you make, and how much do you talk on your show, and do people think and talk about these deportations? I mean, it's every day I hear, if you pay a lot of attention, which of course I do, another several nightmares, anecdotes of people being snatched or being deported, American citizens sometimes, much less actual people who have committed misdemeanors and so on. It feels like because we're seeing the imagery all the time on social media, you're actually witnessing it. It's horrifying to people. And it doesn't go away because it's happening every day. They've got these quotas. You've been writing about Stephen Miller at your excellent Substack. If people aren't subscribed, you should go over and subscribe to Mike's Substack, which he's been doing as long as anybody. The Signorile report is so good. I love it. I actually opened that email and read it. What do you make of what you're seeing? And I mean, you get a lot of them, but I always open yours is what I'm saying, So what do you make of the whole deportation immigration nightmare? And what are your, how much is it a part of the conversation?
It's a big part of the conversation. It's horrific, and it is, I think, a disaster for Trump and the Republicans, in addition to being a terrible humanitarian horror show and just so painful for so many families and so many people across the country. Other people are seeing that. They're seeing the pain. They know that people are in their communities. They know that people are those who they've worked with, and of course they're in many families. It's not the criminals that Trump said he was going to be rounding up. So they see it all, and it is horrifying them. And he actually took an issue that was his strongest issue, immigration, and now he's underwater with it completely because of these deportations. And a lot of it is also, we have to be thankful that they're so inept and they mismanage so many things, because if you look at the details on this concentration camp they built in Florida that they called Alcatraz, they never had even near capacity. They now have maybe, I think the latest reports are it'll be down to 0 people. The judge told them to shut it down. But even before that, they weren't even putting people in there. They didn't need the place. If you're deporting people, why are you building these camps anyway? DeSantis claims he's building another one. He spent $250 million. I think all of it just shows that they're performative on some level, and they're cruel. They're very cruel, and people are seeing that. And you talked about the videos. They're getting into everybody's consciousness. There are too many stories for the media to report on. And it's almost become more of, at least the way I've been tracking it, and I have people on my show, reporters come on to talk about stories. It's almost become the local media reports on what happens locally and every city. And I think a lot of people don't realize this. They think, I see all these stories on, I see something on social media. Is that getting coverage? It may not be getting national news coverage, but in all the localities where this is happening, the local media are covering these stories. And these are people in the community. These are people who people buy their groceries from or work with, at a restaurant or know from school, know their parents. And they're horrifying stories. And I think it's really resonating.
The most horrifying story, of course, was the shooting that happened in Minneapolis this week. And I want to talk with you about that from the standpoint of how the right-wing MAGA echo chamber is looking at it, which in case people aren't paying attention, and I wouldn't blame you not, it's all about this kid being trans. There was another shooter apparently who identified as trans. They're not just saying they were all trans. A lot of people, mainstream right-wingers, are just using this as the excuse and so on. And I want to know how you're handling that and how you're talking about the issue that this what you think about how they've attached to that aspect of the kid. Obviously, I think almost no matter what, it's always we should start with it's the guns first and foremost. But as a result of the fact that he identified as trans apparently and the things that he'd written that have gotten out there, what do you make of that? It seems pretty dangerous and pretty horrific the way that the conversation about it.
It is. And, it's opportunistic and it's transparent too. It's like finally we have a school shooting covered on Fox News because the shooter is transgender. All of a sudden it's wall to wall on Fox News, which ignores whenever there are school shootings. First of all, it's brutal and just heart-wrenching when you see what happens to families, and we condemn every shooter, no matter who they are. The way they're keying in on this and trying to blame trans people and drugs and this and that. I mean, part of it is they need to take the attention away from that we need better gun laws, right? And they've always focused in on the mental health component. And this shooter had a lot of mental health issues. There's no question about it. And was some of that tied to being trans in this society? Probably. Was some of that tied to struggling in a society like this? Yes. But, like a lot of shooters, the ideologies are all over the place. There's all this anti-Semitic stuff and sort of pro-Hitler stuff. And then there's this anti-Trump stuff and pro-equality stuff. So they're often very confused people. But the bottom line is the vast majority of shooters, mass shooters, are cisgender white men. And, the New York Post had demonic transgender shooter, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, how come they don't have white male shooter? They never do that. And what was the last big shooting in Minnesota? A MAGA extremist who shot legislators and their spouses in their homes. And he was a total MAGA extremist. So if there's an ideology that's most prevalent among mass shooters, it's right-wing ideology. And if there's a color and gender, and it's a cisgender white male, to me, that's really what we need to keep pointing out. And we need to keep pointing out that around the world, there are many people who are having mental health issues, whether they're trans, cisgender, white, black, brown, women, men, but they don't have mass shootings in those places like this. And that is about the guns. Of course, there's always mental health everywhere, but there's no higher percentage of people with mental health issues in this country than any place else. What I really, though, was angry about was seeing Fox News trying to claim that trans people are more violent. I saw Sean Hannity saying this when, in fact, trans people are disproportionate. He said disproportionately they are more violent. No, they are disproportionately the victims of violence more than any group in this country.
Yeah. It's impossible to imagine believing that if you know anything about bullying. If you grew up in America, it's like the idea that I was ever bullied as a result of the fact that I was straight or marginalized or minimalized just for being interested in women. Like, it's not. Rachel Campos Duffy this week said, she's the Fox News woman married to Sean Duffy, who's the transportation secretary. They're all MAGA'd up. That Christians are the most persecuted as a result of the shooting taking place at a Catholic school, which he, by the way, went to and his mom worked at. And we can talk about the Catholic Church, obviously, but she said that Christians are the most persecuted, I think, religious group. And of course, Christian nationalists have all of the power, most of the power across the federal government, certainly at the Supreme Court, in Congress, and in the White House. So that's how she played it, and I wonder what your reaction is to that comment and to that belief, because they do believe not only that, white people overwhelmingly think they're more discriminated against than people of color. What do you make of that victim persecution mentality of people who actually are in charge and have all the power?
In both cases, they've just sort of rationalized a way to continue to promote their racism and their dominance, right? Christianity is the dominant religion in this country, and religious minorities are always under threat. They're always mocked, intimidated, discriminated against, whether it's Jews, whether it's Muslims, whatever the group is. And so this is just a way for them, because we now have laws that say you can't, or we have had a lot of laws that say you can't privilege this religion. They see that as discrimination. They see that as they're being victimized because they believe we're in a Christian country. So now you're taking Christianity out of the country. So therefore we are the ones victimized. The same thing with their claiming they're victimized as white people. Yeah. They're seeing the power balance change. They're seeing us moving toward becoming a majority non-white country. And they're realizing that they are not going to have the representation they previously had. Somehow to them, that's discrimination. And so they rationalize this idea of ruling from the minority, which is really on the racial thing, what they're trying to do. I mean, they're looking at South Africa of decades ago as the model.
Last question, Mike, and I'm so glad to talk to you. And if people aren't subscribed to your Substack and following you on social media and listening to you on SiriusXM, they're missing out, because no one does it better. And you've been doing it. Maybe no one does it longer. We're old now, but you've been at it for a long time, and you're probably one of the most respected people in journalism and media, certainly around human rights and gay rights over the years. And so I guess I wanted to ask you, your perspective on the state of gay rights in America, whether or not you think a gay marriage, Obergefell, could be overturned by this Christian nationalist Supreme Court. It would seem that throughout our careers, things were getting better and better, more rights, more opportunity, less harm and damage, and things were trending in the right direction. And now you have to paint over the rainbow flag crosswalk, take down the rainbow flags, and gays are again being openly persecuted. And so it's pretty disheartening to see the gains and then see some of them lost. But I wanted to get your perspective on where things are at with the LGBT community in terms of rights won and lost, I guess.
There's no question that all of it is under threat, and marriage equality is threatened as well, in a variety of ways, whether they overturn Obergefell or not. And I do think there will be a attempt to do that. I do think it will get to the Supreme Court, and I think we should all be very concerned. But whether they do that or not, they're already stripping away at marriage equality the way they did with abortion by limiting gay and lesbian couples and their rights. Public accommodations, a wedding hall can turn you away, a florist can turn you away, or this online database can turn you away. So they're already carving out exceptions, and it's what they've done in the past on other issues. I think that we all have to realize that it will always be under threat. Look at what's happened to civil rights for African Americans in this country. Look at how things have been stripped going from the civil rights movement until now. Look at what we're seeing with voting rights. Look at what we're seeing with women. Look at what we're seeing with abortion rights. I wrote a book in 2015 called It's Not Over. And the premise of the book was that too many people in the LGBTQ community and those who support them think, you arrive. They think it's done. And I think it's probably true of every group. Yeah. They think it's done. We've won. oh, it's never coming back. It's not happening. Well, the other side, they have nothing else to do. I mean, they have nothing else to do. They've built enormous think tanks. They've built enormous organizations. They've built legal firms, and it's their livelihood. One, two, it's their reason for being is to strip away the rights of other people. So you have to constantly be on guard and constantly be vigilant. The biggest enemy has been complacency, where people think, oh, we've won, we can just pack up and go.
Complacency and apathy, something you and I have been fighting our whole lives in careers, and don't plan to stop ever at all. And I am so grateful and thankful to have you here and have you in my life and as a mentor and a friend. And I appreciate you reaching out to me the other day.
It's so great to connect with you, Pete. And we go way back and on Sirius XM and just kind of talking about all these issues. And here we are in a whole different world, and it's kind of horrifying, but at least we all have each other.
We should have a conversation. I actually don't know if you and I have ever really had like a public or even private conversation about like masculinity and all that conversation that everybody seems to be having now. But it would be an interesting thing, I feel like, to have with you and I.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. Sometimes I think, especially about you, like you've always been open and talked about, gay rights and your own life and so on. But I don't know. I probably always saw you as a gay man, like third or fourth. I just always saw you as like an elder. I really did. And I don't mean that but you had been in this. You'd been a print journalist. You'd done journalism. You'd been in the fight. You are one of the players in kind of human rights, much less gay rights, and then a broadcaster and a good person. But at some point, sexual orientation came in. The best thing ever was that the channel OutQ. I always thought that was a great thing that SiriusXM did, and the terrible that it went away. But that's when I met you. You were on that channel. I feel like that was a lot of safety and liberation for people. I don't know. Anyway, masculinity and men next time.
Oh yeah, all insecurity and fear. Period. We'll get into it.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. Yeah. All right, Mike, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you, everybody, for watching live. I'm going to hit end and say bye to Mike. And there you have it, everybody. Michelangelo Signorile. I hope that you'll go listen to him on SiriusXM. Follow him on all the social medias. Support him on Substack, for sure. He's a great journalist. He's a great guy. He's a great activist. I like him a lot. I was very happy to catch up with him. That's all I've got for you. There is still time to decide, last minuters, if you want to come to Farm Jam this weekend this weekend at Kevin Richbird's farm. It's going to be a great time, and those of you listening all the way to the end here, I really appreciate it. I appreciate the support. You're a bumblebee for sure. That's what I call you. And I'm so thankful and so grateful to all of you. Go write a rating and review if you haven't. I just wrote one on my friend Tom Feline's new podcast, so hopefully you have done that for me. But if you haven't, go give it 5 stars and write a rating and review right now, and watch on YouTube. Subscribe for free over there. Subscribe for free on Substack, and that is a wrap. John Carroll, singer-songwriter, award winner, artist, and I love him. He's going to join us this weekend as well. Very much excited to see him. He writes all the music. Go buy it. johncarroll.org. Take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense and you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town, just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, They knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.